Hello, welcome back to Night Fever. It's episode 16, a match reaction to Sunday's 2-1 home defeat against Newcastle Jets at Go Media Stadium. There's lots to talk about, lots to unpack. Let's get into it. And welcome to the show. Steve Corica and the squad knew how massive of it's going in. In a pre-match media comment, he stated that Newcastle might be down the table, but they're still a very good attacking team, and Auckland need to be at our best. It wasn't just talk. The squad saw the return of key personnel. Winger Marley Francois and midfielder Jake Brimmer came back from injury, and centre-back Dan Hall was available again following a suspension. There was optimism in the camp with momentum and home support on our side. We want to get back on track after last week's draw. Auckland went again with a very similar formation. It looked to be a 4-4-2. This time, no Guillermo Mai and Howison coming into the squad. Goalkeeper Michael Vau kept his place in between the sticks, and the defence saw the partnership of Girdwood Reich and Dan Hall at centre-back. Callan Elliott at right-back and Francis de Vries at left-back. In midfield, Lockie Brook remained at right midfield. And in the middle, Jake Brimmer, back from his injury, partnered Verstraete. On the left, we saw Jesse Randall. Up front, something a little bit different. Howison included in the squad. Usually a defensive midfielder. This time round, he was playing higher up the field with Sam Cosgrove. For the Jets, we saw roughly a 4-1-4-1 formation. Their front line had Will Dobson, the teenager, up front, and then supporting midfielders and wide players in behind. Turning out on a wet Sunday afternoon in Auckland were 10,387 supporters making their way into Go Media Stadium. There was excitement, expectation and hope. The crowd turned out to see Auckland maintain their unbeaten start to the season. The atmosphere would have been buzzing early in the build-up, but for much of the second half, the atmosphere was tempered by the weather. Torrential rain came in the final 20 minutes or so, with water building up on the pitch, creating large puddles and affecting ball movement and control. Keeper Michael Vau, he pleaded with the referees and officials, requesting the game to be stopped because of pooling in his goal area. Despite the conditions, the fans stayed. Supporters braved the rain, still hoping for a Black Knights win. So the game kicked off for the first half, and just 3 minutes into the match, the Jets struck through Will Dobson. The teenager capitalised on a clearance from defender Dan Hall, latched on and fired to give Newcastle a shock early lead. The home fans were silenced in the wet terraces of Go Media Stadium. It was an early blow that shook Auckland, but responded well around the 14th minute from a well-worked set piece. Auckland defender De Vries curled across into the box. The ball was nodded down by Sam Cosgrove and found Louis Verstraete, who on the half volley smashed it into the net. The keeper had no chance whatsoever. He levelled things up to be 1-1 and the momentum changed. There was hope in the crowd that this was the turnaround that we needed. After that, the game had a sense of balance. Auckland held momentum, possession, probing through the midfield and attempting to get the ball out wide, using wings and looking for chances. At times, it seemed like we had the upper hand. De Vries looked active. Midfielders tried to create opportunities. The defence and goalkeeper Vau looked steady. But there were warning signs, the early concession, and then a bit too much patience at times. Maybe a little overthinking, a lack of urgency in certain attacks. Then just before the break, again, a bad time to concede, showing lapses of concentration. the Jets struck again. Around 41-42 minutes, a through ball and Lachlan Rose cleverly stayed onside and ran onto it and slotted it past Vau to make it 2-1 to Newcastle just before the break. It was a sucker punch just before half-time. Always hurts. For Auckland, momentum lost, heads perhaps lowered. For Newcastle, confidence surged. So by half-time, the score was 1-2 and Auckland were on the back foot. The second half saw no easing off from the rain as it became heavier and heavier, causing many fans to retreat into the high stands under cover in the rain. The second half began and it was as though the rain grew stronger. By around 30 minutes after the restart, the downpour became torrential, resulting in large puddles, slow patches, water gathering, especially in some areas of the field, including near Auckland's goalmouth. Auckland tried to push, they needed the equaliser. The midfield tried to control the tempo, to pass and break through. De Vries working hard down the left, attempting to get those crosses into the box. Gygos, who was substituted on in the second half, he helped to try keep control, but the slippery pitch made crisp passing and sharp movements difficult. Chances were fewer, the ball often stopped in the water, and passes slowed down. Quick transitions became riskier and the Jets, rather than open up, seemed content to soak up the pressure, defend deep and absorb possession and look for counter-attacks. At one point, the Auckland fans and bench staff argued that the ball might have gone out near the build-up to a Jets play. There was frustration on the bench. Auckland goalkeeping coach getting a yellow card. Keeper Vau had to stay alert. The water in the box made everything unpredictable. The Jets' defence stayed disciplined. In short, the second half was chaos, not fluid football, but hunting, scrambling, mistakes, misexecuted passes, and time ran out. No equaliser came and the Jets held on. It was a comedy of errors as the Jets were going forward. Players were running past the ball as it stopped suddenly in the water. Everyone was sliding. Water was splashing everywhere. It was a real spectacle to be there watching that. One of the craziest games I've ever watched. Michael Vau, having complained to the ref of the conditions, had a moment of madness. He tried to roll the ball out and it stopped suddenly at his feet. He dived on the ball to regather. Questions about a possible indirect free kick against the Auckland keeper, but the ref played on, acknowledging the difficult conditions that we were in. The final score, very disappointing for the home fans. It was Auckland FC 1, Newcastle Jets 2. We'll go through the players now. Michael Vau in goal. He did what he could under nightmare conditions. Water pooling, unpredictable bounce, kept Auckland in it, but 2 early goals conceded and the second half was messy. At right back, Cullen Elliott put in another solid start, helping Auckland move forward down the right. The centre-back pairing, they were exposed heavily, probably one of our worst centre-back performances. Despite early glimpses of some good quality blocks, Jake Goodwood-Reich, he held the line for much of the match, but it was a tough day given the conditions. Dan Hall, he returned after his suspension and was seen at fault for the opening goal. The defence as a whole were stretched under the Jets' counter-attack and pace. Left-back Francis de Vries, as always, working his way down the left flank, putting crosses into the box, especially in those wet conditions where passes along the ground were non-existent. We had to go long. Jake Brimmer not at full rhythm just yet. He struggled to spark control under pressure. Louis Verstraete getting the goal and showing a good presence in attack. Always in the engine room for Auckland FC. Jesse Randall on the left wing, he had a number of golden chances to score, but couldn't find the net on several occasions. Howie Son playing in an unfamiliar position, one that the fans are not used to. He never really put his stamp on the game. And Sam Cosgrove up front, trying to get onto those balls, a little lethargic at times, not being able to link up very well with the midfielders. For Newcastle Jets, Will Dobson, what a moment for the youngster. An early goal put pressure on Auckland immediately. Lachlan Rose, composed and alert to stay onside, running onto the ball to score. Their midfield and their defence adjusted well after conceding. They defended deep and understood how to survive in chaos. Overall, it was a bitter defeat. Auckland did not show spirit. The equaliser was well earned, but two big mistakes early and before half-time, combined with chaotic weather, affected the second half. It cost us. The Jets were more ruthless, more optimistic. They defended smartly and rode out the storm, both literal and figurative, and claimed the win. Taking some takeaways from the match, Auckland FC, this match exposed our vulnerability even with a majority possession and more attacking intent. We lost a decisive battle in the moments that really mattered, early and just before half-time. It's a warning sign. Dominance in general play doesn't guarantee victory. The weather on the pitch conditions did play a big part. The torrential downpour 20 minutes before full-time made clean football impossible. The ball stopping in puddles, passes misfired, the pace of the game lost. Next week, if the forecast threatens more rain, maybe tactics need to adjust. More direct play, simpler passes, more aerial or set-piece emphasis, rather than trying to build intricate patterns on a sodden surface. Defensive organisation needs tightening. Those early mistakes really cost us. Maybe thinking how we start matches, be more cautious, more disciplined, rather than overcommitting players forward. From personnel perspectives, the injured players now returning, there's more squad depth, but perhaps the shape or midfield control needs reworking when conditions are difficult. Maybe a more robust midfield or alternative formation when the pitch is heavy. For the Newcastle Jets, it was an enormous win for them. Confidence boosting, a statement win against the reigning premiers away in absurd conditions. Their resilience, optimism and game management under pressure, that could give them momentum going into the next match. They showed that defending in numbers and counter-attacking works, especially when the opponent dominates possession. That might encourage them to adopt a hit and defend approach in future games, especially away from home or in tricky weather conditions. For Auckland, knowing how we played, we'll need to be sharper, especially early and more ruthless in those moments. This match will go down as puddle ball. The heavy rain and waterlogged pitch influenced more than half the game. Next time such conditions threaten both teams, but especially Auckland, will need to adapt. Perhaps avoid trying to build from the back. Perhaps change the approach to more direct long balls, more high crosses, more set pieces, where ground passes and quick movement is less reliable. Also, this defeat ends Auckland's unbeaten start. That might shake a bit of confidence, but it can also be a reality check. The margin for error is small. Taking a look at some statistics from the match, Auckland edging the possession 54% to Newcastle Jets 46. Shot attempts, Auckland way out in front with 26, Newcastle Jets with 17. But on target, Auckland only managed 4, with Newcastle Jets getting 6 shots on target. Corners wise, it was all Auckland, 8 corners to Newcastle Jets 1. Yellow cards, 2 for Auckland, 1 for Newcastle. And goalkeeper saves, it was 4 apiece for both Vau and the Newcastle Jets keeper. As for man of the match for Auckland FC, the warehouse gave it to Michael Vau for his saves. And in those conditions, he did make some key saves, stopping us from losing by many more goals. Throughout the team, it's hard to pick somebody who got man of the match in a defeat where we were left very disappointed. But I'd probably go for Louis Verstraete with his play in midfield, getting the goal as well. You can see the amount of work that he does off the ball often goes unnoticed. So Verstraete to get man of the match for me. So there you have it, a painful but instructive day for us at Night Fever. Good performance in patches, but not enough where it counted. The Jets were sharper, tougher, cleaner when it mattered, and the weather, it threw a whole extra challenge on top of everything. We've got a lot to learn and we'll rebound. Next week's derby against the Phoenix needs focus, discipline, and maybe a more pragmatic approach if conditions demand it. I'll be back in a few days with a match preview for this weekend's New Zealand derby against Wellington at Go Media Stadium this Saturday. Thanks for tuning in. If you like this episode, make sure you subscribe, leave a comment, or support the podcast in any way you can. I'll see you next time. Up the port, up the Black Knights. Goodbye for now.